Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving into some seriously deep Buddhist thought in this deep dive.
Mm,
We're talking about the very real possibility of getting totally lost on the path to enlightenment. Like
yeah.
you're on this quest for inner peace,
Right.
but maybe you forgot to pack a map.
Yeah. It's like those ancient texts are surprisingly relevant,
Mhm.
like even if we're not all aspiring to be Buddhas or anything.
Right.
The thing is, staying focused, avoiding distractions, not mistaking a fleeting moment of peace for some like lasting enlightenment. I mean, that's something we all struggle with.
Yeah, totally. It's like we all signed up for this epic journey, but then nobody told us about all the detours. So we're going to
Oh,
break down these wrong turns today. What are they called again? The something strings?
the four strings, yeah.
Right? The four strains, like
Yeah.
those classic wrong turns that send you veering wildly off the path.
Yeah.
And here's what I find really interesting. There's actually a lot of debate about which of these wrong turns is like the ultimate worst case scenario.
There really is.
Right.
Some people think that never even catching a glimpse of enlightenment, that's the real tragedy. But then others say it's way more agonizing to actually get there, to experience it, and then to somehow lose your grip on it.
Wow, yeah, to have it and then lose it.
Exactly.
That is tough.
But, before we even get into those strings, we need to talk about this idea of it's called the abandonment of emptiness.
Okay, abandonment of emptiness. That sounds kind of like a bad breakup song, doesn't it?
Ah,
He left me and now my heart is empty.
right.
But I'm guessing it's a bit more nuanced than that.
Yeah. You're right. It's not about feeling empty inside. It's more about recognizing the impermanent, the interconnected nature of reality.
Yeah.
When we lose sight of that, when we get attached to things or ideas that we think will make us happy, that's when we stray from the path.
So it's like believing that new car smell is going to last forever.
Exactly.
And we all know it's going to fade.
It's that attachment that trips us up.
It's that attachment.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that each of these four strings, they kind of show up at different points, like on your journey towards enlightenment.
Okay.
The first one is called temperament, and it's all about giving up too soon, getting discouraged. You sit down to meditate, and suddenly your mind is like a room full of monkeys,
Oh, tell me about it.
all competing for your attention.
One time I tried meditating, and I swear I spent the entire time thinking about what I was going to eat for lunch.
It's so common. And that's where temperament can really trip you up. You basically give up before you even give yourself a chance to, like, settle in.
It's like quitting a marathon before you even hit mile 1
Exactly.
because your shoelaces are untied. So what's next on our list of enlightenment roadblocks?
All right, so next we have sealing. This one's sneaky because it's about getting caught up in the rituals, the outward form,
Mhm.
but without really connecting with the meaning, the internal transformation.
So I might be going through all the motions,
Mhm.
lighting incense, chanting, maybe even wearing the yoga pants, but my heart's not really in it.
Exactly.
It's more about checking off the boxes than actually changing.
And this can happen with something as simple as meditation. You can get so focused on your posture, your breath, that
Yeah.
you totally miss the point, the stillness, the awareness.
Right, like someone's so busy taking pictures of the Grand Canyon that
Oh,
they
and
never actually look up from their phone to see it with their own eyes.
exactly. Have you ever noticed that tendency in yourself?
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to get caught up in the doing that we forget about the being. All right, we're halfway through our list of strings. What's up next on this enlightening journey?
Okay, so the third one is called antidote.
Mm.
And this one's a cautionary tale about mistaking temporary bliss for like true lasting enlightenment. Imagine you have this really profound experience, maybe during meditation, maybe just a moment of awe in nature,
Hmm.
and it leaves you feeling deeply peaceful content.
That sounds amazing. What could possibly be wrong with wanting to hold on to that feeling?
Well, there's nothing wrong with those feelings. They're wonderful. But the problem is, those kinds of feelings are fleeting. True enlightenment isn't about chasing after these peak experiences. It's about Beautiful, alluring, but ultimately dangerous.
Yeah, they'll lure you right off your ship
Exactly.
and right onto the rocks.
And these texts, they actually describe some pretty wild experiences, like having your body overflowing with bliss, or your mind becoming so clear you can practically see in the dark.
Wow. I can see how those experiences could be pretty intoxicating.
Right. And it would be so easy to get caught up in them to lose sight of the bigger picture.
It's like mistaking a signpost for the destination.
Exactly.
You're on the right road.
Yeah.
You're making progress, but you're not quite there yet.
And the problem isn't the experience itself. It's when we cling to it, when we mistake it for the goal instead of just a glimpse of what's possible.
Right, so it's not about becoming numb or detached from our experiences. It's about like learning to experience them differently.
Exactly, with wisdom
Yeah.
and with non-attachment.
Okay, so how do we cultivate that kind of wisdom?
Well, it starts with recognizing that enlightenment, it's not about chasing those peak experiences. It's not about feeling good all the time.
Yeah, it's got to be more than that, right?
Yeah. It's about a much deeper and more lasting transformation, a shift in how we see the world and ourselves.
And that doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey.
It is definitely a journey.
And speaking of journeys, there's this fourth strain we haven't talked about yet called path fruit.
Ah, yes, path fruit.
What is that all about?
This one's all about constantly seeking out new teachings, new practices, without ever really absorbing the wisdom of what we've already learned.
So we become like spiritual tourists,
Exactly.
always chasing the next exotic retreat
Oh, yeah.
or the next Instagram-worthy meditation pose.
But never really stopping to, like, savor the meal. We're just filling our plates with more and more food.
It's like having a bookshelf full of amazing books that you never actually read. Or maybe a more modern analogy.
Yeah.
It's like endlessly scrolling through social media, gathering all these little bits of information, but never actually letting any of it sink in.
That's such a good analogy.
And it's so easy to do,
It is.
especially in today's world.
Well, we're constantly bombarded with information, new ideas, new gurus. It can be totally overwhelming.
Right. And so we end up feeling like we need to constantly be learning more, doing more.
When really the true work, it happens when we pause, when we reflect, when we allow ourselves to be transformed by what we've already encountered.
It's not about the accumulation of knowledge. It's about letting that knowledge change us from the inside out. That really resonates with me. It's so easy to get caught up in chasing those peak experiences. Like those amazing insights you get every now and then.
Yeah.
But we forget that the real work is in like integrating those insights, bringing that wisdom into our everyday lives.
It's true. It's not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
And these texts, they don't just like drop us off at the Enlightenment Summit and wish us luck.
Yeah.
They also talk about what it takes to actually maintain that clarity and insight, even in the midst of everyday life.
That's what I find so fascinating. It's not enough to just have these glimpses of enlightenment. We have to learn how to live from that place of wisdom.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's where this idea of like obstructions to ripening comes in.
Okay, obstructions to ripening. What does that even mean?
So imagine you've planted a seed or a seed of enlightenment, you've nurtured it, you've watched it sprout, but it's still delicate. It still needs protection from the elements to really grow strong.
So it's like we can't just expect our enlightenment to magically take care of itself.
Right, it takes work.
We have to actively tend to it
Yes.
and protect it from anything that might harm it.
Exactly.
So what are some of those obstructions that we need to watch out for? Those
Yeah.
things that can sabotage our spiritual growth even after we've had these big insights.
Well, what's really interesting is that even things we usually think of as positive, like our senses, our thoughts, they can actually become obstacles if we're not careful.
Really?
Yeah, it's like having all the ingredients you need to cook an amazing meal, but you get so caught up in organizing your spice rack
Yeah.
that you never actually start cooking.
That is so me. I can totally see myself doing that.
Right.
Getting so lost in the details that I miss the bigger picture.
Exactly. And the texts give us some really relatable examples of how this might show up. Like, imagine being so swamped with your daily to-do list that you completely forget to meditate or connect with nature.
Well, I've totally been there.
Or how about this getting so overwhelmed by all the suffering in the world that you lose sight of that fundamental interconnectedness of all beings?
Right. Like it's easy to get caught up in the negativity
Yeah.
and forget that we're all in this together.
And then there are the big life challenges, illness, grief, loss. Those can really shake us to our core and make it hard to hold on to that sense of peace.
So basically, life is full of distractions.
Yes.
And it's up to us to learn how to navigate them without losing sight of our spiritual path.
Exactly. And the texts offer some really practical advice for how to do that.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some of their tips?
Well, they emphasize the importance of returning to our practices. Things like meditation, mindfulness, spending time in nature.
The things that help us reconnect with that inner stillness.
Exactly. It's like hitting the reset button, reminding ourselves who we are at our core.
I love that. And what about compassion? I do imagine that cultivating compassion is a big part of this too.
Absolutely. Compassion for ourselves and for others.
It's that reminder that we're all just doing our best. We're
Exactly.
all on this journey together. Well, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive. We've explored the potential pitfalls on the path to enlightenment, the importance of integrating wisdom into our daily lives, and even some practical tips for staying the course when things get tough.
It's been quite a journey
It really has.
through ancient wisdom.
But you know what? I think that the biggest takeaway for me is this idea that enlightenment is not some distant destination. It's something we cultivate moment to moment
It's true.
through